Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, to wherever you might be in the world. For those who joined right at the beginning, my name is Sierra Rimmerscheid, and I'm a director at Shortlist. We are co-hosting this webinar with Sustainable Energy for All, and have the pleasure of being joined by Elizabeth Wanjeke Chege from Sustainable Energy for All, Duradula Femi Ajala from Student Youth Development Network, Dennis Karema, the CEO of Soko Fresh, and Dwayne Asimbo Godfrey, one of Shortlist's recruiters and experts in-house. To get us started, I'm actually going to pass the microphone over to Rosemary Adim from SEforALL, who's their program manager for gender, youth, and sustainable, or sorry, for gender and youth. Rosemary, over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. My name is Rosemary Dem, and I'm the Program Manager for Gender and Youth and Sustainable Energy for All. And it's my immense pleasure to welcome you to the first of 3 webinars in our summer series with Shortlist Futures titled Activating Africa's Green Economy Through Youth Employment. The Sustainable Energy for All and Shortlist Futures have a long-standing partnership, united by a shared belief that young people are essential to Africa's green economy, social progress, and sustainable development. Together, we are committed to ensuring that youth are active agents of change. The opportunity before us is immense. The International Energy Agency, IEA, projects that over 30 million new jobs could be created in 2030 in clean energy, energy efficiency, and low emissions technologies. Yet only 13% of today's workforce currently holds the skills needed for a meaningful green transition. This gap is not just a challenge, it's also a call to action for us all. Energy is fundamental to every aspect of life. It powers our homes, our industries, our businesses, and even our digital interactions. So as the demand for green skills outpaces supply, roles like energy auditors, environmental engineers, and solar technicians are among the fastest growing jobs in 2024. However, too many young Africans lack the training and support needed to seize these opportunities. Additionally, in recent reports on Africa, the renewable energy sector witnessed a significant surge in investment in 2024, rising from about $2.6 billion in 2021 to an estimated $40 billion. Also of notice that solar PV installations, both utility scale and distributed, received the largest share of renewable energy investments, accounting for over 62% of the total funding. So this series is designed to address this urgent need for reskilling, upskilling, and targeted career support. So over the next 3 months, we'll explore how young Africans can access these opportunities and advance in the expanding green economy, from energy access to energy efficiency to climate technologies, financing, and more. Our first webinar, Cooling the Planet, Jobs in Energy Efficiency and Cold Chain Solutions, brings together industry experts, private sector leaders, youth entrepreneurs, and innovators. Together, we'll discuss the skills, the networks, and the resources young job seekers need to unlock these opportunities. Youth have a unique and timely opportunity to capitalize on the growing recognition that investment in clean energy is more important than ever. So as the sector attracts more investment and new jobs emerge, young people will need to understand how to leverage these economic opportunities, especially in the face of rapidly changing job requirements and issues like the rise of technologies like AI and the increasing need for adaptability. So skills for traditional jobs are being disrupted, but youth are uniquely positioned to fill these gaps if they can identify, assess, and acquire the right skills and support. So whether your interest lies in energy efficiency and cooling, or sustainable agriculture, AI, or EVs, this series will help you understand how to navigate and thrive in the jobs of the future. So as investment in clean energy continues to grow and job requirements evolve, it is important now more than ever for you to stay adaptable, informed, and ready to lead. So thank you for joining us, and I look forward to the first dynamic discussion in the series that aims to empower young Africans to shape the future of the continent together. Thank you. Over to you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you, Rosemary. And just quick housekeeping, everybody. As we're going through the chat and the panel discussion, please make use of the Q&A feature if you have questions. Our goal is to feed those in as we're going and then spend time towards the end of the webinar answering those questions directly. So feel free to pop those in the chat as we go through the agenda. So as Rosemary mentioned, we're seeing a gap between the skills that young Africans have and what is needed in the job market for them to be able to access these roles, be successful, and ultimately take advantage of what are numerous emerging opportunities in the sector. So Shortlist Futures actually published a report last year. I will drop that in the chat later. That was forecasting direct green job growth in Africa's green economy between now and 2030, and found that there are an estimated 3.3 million new direct jobs that will be created across 12 value chains in the next 5 years. This, I think, represents a great opportunity for young people to be able to assess the landscape, understand where they might be best able to find employment opportunities that match to them, and see where there's going to be growth over the long term so that they will have the opportunity to access stable, well-paid, and career track opportunities. Leading the charge there is solar. Within that, we see roles such as solar engineers, solar installation, maintenance, helping to sell solar home systems door to door, customer service. The opportunities there are bountiful and mostly do not require any advanced education or degree. And so they really do represent an opportunity and space for many young people to be able to access them directly. The other major areas where we see opportunity would be in waste remediation and recycling. There's lots of waste that is generated as a result of these investments into renewables. That might be batteries, it might be solar PV cells, it might be plastics, right? It could be a bunch of different things. And within that as well, lots of opportunity for people to work across those different value chains and work streams to be able to meaningfully participate. The third and perhaps least surprising area where there is a lot of opportunity for growth is where we see this ag energy nexus. And I think Dennis can probably speak to this more when we get to his section of the panel. But agriculture already represents the largest share of employment opportunities for Africans across the continent writ large. And so thinking through, right, how things like solar water pumps, cold storage solutions, the reduction of post-harvest loss, all of these are going to be really important, not just for the preservation of fresh produce, more nutritious food, adding value to farmers' harvests and women's, say, catch from lakes and fishing, but an ample opportunity as well for young people to be able to get involved in that sector and space. And maybe just to say before we dive into the panel, you know, I think I've just thrown a lot of information about you about where there are opportunities. And while there are some areas where there are skills gaps and deficits, I think the number one thing I would say as Shortlist Futures is that the desire to be adaptable, creative, agile is probably the most important feature to getting you into a job and ultimately being successful. That sort of creative urge and impulse, desire to learn will really take you far. And those sort of core transferable skills are what will allow you to be able to successfully navigate the job market. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get us started with our panel discussion, and would love to start with Elizabeth Wanjeke-Chege, the Energy Efficiency and Cooling Specialist at Sustainable Energy for All. Elizabeth, you know, maybe taking a step back, I would love to hear from your perspective a little bit more about what you're seeing in terms of policy changes, standards, and financing mechanisms, and what of those are needed to accelerate youth employment and entrepreneurship in Africa's energy sectors. Are there ways that government, industry, and development partners can work together to create a more enabling environment for young people?
Definitely, and thank you for having me here today to have this fantastic conversation, especially on topics like energy efficiency and cold chains. And taking a step back, cold chains are part of this cooling conversation. Just to introduce energy efficiency, because many times across Africa, people ask me, what does that mean? It may not be visible, which makes it very rare for people to understand, but it has a lot of power. The power to create these jobs we're going to talk about, the power to grow sustainable economies, shield us from energy crisis while accelerating the vision to SDG 7. One of the things we see a lot is resource wastage and technologies that are not highly efficient. So there's a lot of opportunity to actually transition to energy efficient lifestyles, and I'll come back to that. This is not done as a silo effort. It's done under the mission efficiency ecosystem that brings actions, commitments, governments, organizations, corporates to individuals. So the individuals actually listen to this can actually go to the mission efficiency website and see a lot more on that. But part of the work around energy efficiency and opportunities for youth is exactly what you've said. We have existing cities, we have existing buildings, we have existing public institutions that are wasting a lot of energy through whether it's light fittings, whether it's air conditioning, whether it's the cold chains we're going to talk about. So we normally need energy auditors to do these assessments. And we don't have enough skills, capacity coming through from our universities, from our colleges as well. So when we talk about the standards and opportunities that are coming through, we start off with the governments themselves before we even talk about the curriculum. So policy standards, if I give 4 mandatory areas that we can actually look at, if governments or every government contract actually requested that for energy efficiency or cooling systems projects, we have minimum of 20% youth employment, that will create a huge shift in Africa. A second opportunity we can look at is skills-based migration across Africa. We have regional areas that look at energy efficiency. We're looking at harmonization of standards across the regions in Africa. But at the same time, we have to allow our youth to travel across the borders and actually provide for an opportunity and talent on a $600 billion cooling market here in Africa. Not to mention the $2 trillion for energy efficiency, globally up to 2030. Last but not least for now, green procurement standards. I mentioned about the public buildings, but if we actually put across the standards, the requirements and make them mandatory, that we must have sustainable cooling. And when I talk about sustainable cooling, we look at thermal comfort, so air conditioning systems. We look at cold chains, which we'll talk a lot more about. But when you talk about cold chains, it's not just agricultural cold chains, but we'll dive into that, but also vaccine cold chains. We need to be able to support our healthcare systems with cold chains. If we had mandatory standards, that would really create the jobs that we need to see across energy efficiency and cooling across Africa. Last but not least, I'll just highlight a little bit on finance as well. We say we don't want to leave anyone behind. So we don't just need engineers, we also need youth who are looking to join the financial sector to be part of this. And there's opportunity around the financial institutions in creating these innovative models that can actually be used to fund youth entrepreneurs. And one of the interesting ones that I'll come back to later is, for example, we've looked at pay as you save model. As you're saving on energy efficiency, you can get a 25-year-old with technical training to get some finance to set up a cold storage facility. But I'll stop there for now and look forward to more of the discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I love this expression, pay as you save. That was new to me, and I think we should be using that more. Well, maybe just to shift focus a little bit and pick up on some of what you were saying, Elizabeth. Dwayne, as I mentioned before, Dwayne Asimbo Godfrey is a project manager at Shortlist Futures, who's day in and day out working on our recruitment efforts. But yeah, Dwayne, picking up on what Elizabeth said, what are some of the most in-demand and emerging roles you're seeing in Africa's energy sector today? And how can these new technologies, for example, in energy efficiency, cooling, new business models, and market trends shape the skills needed in technical and non-technical roles?
Thank you, Sarah. I feel like because we work so closely together, we covered a lot of the in-demand roles. But I'd like to start with skills first. I feel like when you have the soft skills, the transferable skills that are more important than the job that are in demand. So skills like communication, problem solving, adaptability, teamwork, these are critical, especially if you want to move up in your career, you want to change roles, um, and thrive in a changing environment. The clean energy space is expanding. I've been in this space 6 years, and I feel like every month there's a new term that I need to learn. So you have to be curious as well and willing to learn. In terms of on-demand roles, because the space is still growing and you find a lot of organizations are being set up or scaling, typically we hear a lot of demand for, and I think Wangeshi touched on this, we need finance people. We need people who understand finance, basic finance, donor finance, carbon credits, but mostly HR, finance, admin, sales and customer service. And then on the more technical side, we do have a need for engineers, both mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, design engineers, which is a new one, which I am yet to completely understand. And so I say we need to stay curious. And solar PV technicians as well as mini grid operators. Um, should I stop there? To your second question, I feel like the answer is much longer.
Yeah, so yes, thank you for that. And yeah, I'm assuming there might be many women who've joined the call or are people from diverse and different backgrounds. And so would just love to hear, how can women and people from other perhaps marginalized backgrounds access more technical and leadership roles within the leadership sector? What are effective strategies or programs or interventions you've seen that really help them overcome what can be barriers?
I put that challenge on the companies hiring. We can have many women say that they want to go into these companies, but if there are no structures to put them in place, that makes it difficult for them to get into these organizations. I think intentionality is a big deal for me. Organizations need to be really intentional about hiring women and youth. One way we can do that is partnering with organizations that engage with women and youth and directly recruiting from these organizations. There's organizations such as Women in Energy. We can share all that information after the call, but I think the work is on the hiring organizations to do this sort of thing. I think structuring onboarding is very important. Onboarding for people to understand what the role requires, a clear understanding of promotion criteria is also very important. Um, I think I sing this all the time, Sarah's probably had me say it all the time. We need to pay people better. Just because you're a woman or a youth doesn't mean you should be paid at below market value. We've noted that attractive, salaries and medical covers attract, especially medical cover. If you're a woman, you'd be looking at medical that covers your family. We found that this leads to more attraction to female candidates and retention. The youth, we hear this all the time. You're fresh out of school, they should be paid less. We at Shortlist fight against that all the time. And I believe everyone should be paid above market value to be able to attract them and retain them. In terms of programs that have worked, it would be a disservice to not mention the program Ciara and I work on. So we both work on a donor-funded project called the Energy Access Talent Initiative that is focused on helping clean energy companies find early graduates or young people to get into clean energy jobs across Africa. Through this program, we've already placed 800 people, and I believe we need more such programs or bigger scale programs to help the youth get into such jobs. On the other hand, we ran a program that closed successfully a few months ago, the Women for Green Jobs program, which placed over 750 women into clean energy jobs. A lot of these women, this was their first jobs or their first time in this space. And because of this, we've seen more interest in clean energy, not just as a man's career or a career a sector that nobody understands. I believe such programs are very important for access to information, access to availability of jobs, but also helping these companies think through gender hiring and youth hiring and retention.
Great, thank you. And for everyone, I just saw one question's popped into the chat or into the Q&A. So again, if you have more questions, please put them there and we will get to them as we go. Maybe, Dwayne, you spoke a lot about the role that companies also have to play in this, how they can be supportive of, more inclusive workplaces and environments. And so with that in mind, Dennis, I would love to turn to you. So for everybody's benefit, Dennis Karema is the founder and CEO of SocoFresh. And for maybe those who aren't familiar, could you introduce SocoFresh a little bit to the audience? And share how you identified a need for your specific business in Africa's green economy. It'd be great to hear, from an entrepreneurship perspective, what initial steps did you take to launch your enterprise, and what entrepreneurship skills have you had to develop along the way to be successful?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sierra, and hello, everyone. My name is Dennis Karema, as Sierra has said. I'm the CEO at SocoFresh, and we are a company that is providing solutions for post-harvest loss management and market access for small and medium-scale farms. We provide the technology that enables farmers to store their produce in ideal conditions after harvest. And we also connect this network of farmers to markets that can offtake their produce. So we are really solving the main pain points that farmers have at the point when their produce is ready and it needs to go to market. And we are doing this in Kenya with a goal of being able to address the issue around the region, the East African region, because we see that the challenges that farmers in Kenya are facing are quite similar to those in the neighboring countries. And to your question about the process of getting to this, so SocoFresh, we incorporated a company in 2019, and I think the first thing was really getting to really understand the challenge that we wanted to solve. What is the problem, and how are people currently solving for that problem? So I spent quite some time deep diving into different value chains that most of the Kenyan smallholder farmers are involved in, getting to really understand what is the challenge and the barrier to them being able to scale up their agricultural enterprise, and what are they currently doing at the moment with in terms of solving the challenge, and would there be a solution that would be more optimal, that is better, faster, cheaper, that can be able to really put a dent at the issue of post-harvest loss, because as it stands, about 40% of produce is lost after harvest. And so being able to really understand the challenge is an important bit, because you want to solve for a problem that is giving people sleepless nights, one that they have tried to solve and have suboptimal solutions, and you want to optimize that, and one where there is enough room to grow, because when you look at agriculture, it's the backbone of most African economies. So there's really a lot of bandwidth to how the company can be able to scale. And then I think the other bit is really understanding and connecting the dots in this supply chain. So for me, one of the things that I really had to first quickly realize is I am not an agricultural expert. I am, I would say my background is actually in the technology field. So I wanted to really understand all the nuances in the agricultural space. So I spent quite some time looking for experts from people working in development organizations that had for decades worked with the smallholder farmers to see, what have you learned? Why are things not changing? What really can be quite transformational? And then the other one is starting to think about how to build a team, how to build the culture of the team. And so to some of the things that Dwayne was saying about making the workplace an ideal and optimal place for people to work. And so I have gone through the process of getting to have external support to really look at, for example, how do we have a solid gender action plan, not just for us as a business, but also for our customers. What are the blind spots that are there, and how can I be able to address them? And then obviously the other bit is that our business is capital intensive, because we provide this technology on a service model, which means that we have to invest in the infrastructure at the start. So it's also really important to figure out financing, to be able to really build a solid track record that can enable us to access financing in form of debt, in form of equity, and other instruments. And so I knew that from the start that we really needed to have a company that has its books in order, that has all the necessary SOPs, policies, procedures in place, and also an advisory board before we had an actual board of management that would also provide me with the opportunity to have people that can guide me in terms of the strategic angles of the business and can be my sounding board. Thanks, Ciara.
Great, thanks. So in summary, I think what I heard there for anyone who might be thinking about their own entrepreneurship journey is identify a problem that you're passionate about, be humble and recognize that you don't need to be an expert in everything. Prioritize thinking through like where you can start first, sort of like small bites before you take a bite at the whole apple. So thank you for that. Maybe building on that, I think you were starting to touch on this a little bit, Dennis, but could you share a little bit more on what technical and soft skills you as an employer are looking for day in and day out? We would love to hear as well how young people might be able to access more hands-on training, if there's internship opportunities they might be aware of, how they can seek out a mentor so they can better prepare themselves for these opportunities.
Yes, so I think also quite a good question. In terms of technical skills, so we are a company that is building this cooling infrastructure. So we're looking for electrical engineers, refrigeration technicians, and people who have the ability to, for example, assemble things like solar panels, manage to maintain these systems. I actually, when we started off, we really had to start looking at where young people being trained on these skills. So starting to look at some of the colleges around, reaching out to them to find out, could you give us referrals to some of your students? Can they come? And we provide both attachments for students who are not yet graduated, either in diploma or degree level, as well as paid internships. And we've had a good partnership with Shortlist on this because there is also what is taught in school versus actually the hands-on experience, getting to experience like thermal cooling technology, which is quite unique in this kind of market. And so for technical, civil, and refrigeration technicians, we are always on the lookout, and we have quite an elaborate way of training them. We also partner with the manufacturers of some of these components to be able to provide in-depth training to our teams so that they are able to be competent enough to handle this equipment. And also some of those skills are transferable. They can be able to utilize them even in other places that they'll get to work in later. In terms of soft skills, so most of the technical work often involves sometimes field work, which means that we are looking for people who can manage their own time and manage it well, people who are good communicators, because we have the internal teams, we have the farmers, we have other stakeholders, and so you need to be able to communicate effectively with your team, but also with external people, and the ability to manage your own time well, because again, no one is supervising your each and every moment when you're in the field. So you're able to come up with a plan. This is the assignment that I have. Maybe it's to deploy a solar cold room. On day one, I'm going to do this. Day two, I'm going to do this, and be able to see it through to the end. We also look for people who are teachable. Again, the skills that are taught in college, sometimes we want to have additional technical skills. For example, training the teams on the IoT capabilities of this equipment, linking them up with the manufacturers to have more in-depth training. And so people need to, one, be open to learning, be able to converse well in, obviously in English, as a medium of communication, and just have the desire to become better at what they're doing. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. I'm sure there was a lot of practical, I think, advice in there for various young people to pick up on. Maybe Duro. So Duro Dula Femi Ajala is the Cool Cycle co-founder at Youth Sustainable Development Network, and is a youth entrepreneur herself. And yeah, we would love to hear about Cool Cycle's work in Nigeria and to learn more about how it's transforming the agricultural sector there through renewable energy and cold storage. Are there, specific technical or entrepreneurial skills that you have found have been the most valuable to you in your journey to starting Cool Cycle?
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here, standing on existing protocols. So like she mentioned, my name is Dodo Afemi Ajala, and I'm co-founder of YSDN. So YSDN is an organization based in Nigeria that focuses on driving impact and change in our local communities. And we do this by policy recommendation, capacity building, and sustainable project implementation, which then leads me to the question she asked about Cool Cycle. So YSDN prioritizes impact-driven approach to many things it does in it, and then the Cool Cycle project was no different. But prior to us starting out the Cool Cycle project, just a brief introduction and a background was that we had a solar irrigation project in Ekpe area of Lagos State about, I think, 2019, 2020, where we helped the farmers in there. So this was the starting point for us for impactful projects in the Ekpe area. So coming from there, we're able to then realize that many of them had issues with electricity, issues with post-harvest losses. I know Dennis made mention of so many things that they are doing in Kenya. And this is similar initiative that we're also doing in Nigeria, which is the western part of Africa, where we see that these needs are what the African people, or in my own community, need, because the Ekpe area is majorly made up of farmers. That's their major source of livelihood. So they depend solely on this. And then we have the Cool Cycle project, which was a grant from the UK. So this conversation even started from my co-founder while he was in the SDG pavilion, SDG7 pavilion in COP27, I believe. He had a conversation with a couple of people, and then from there we're able to then speak to Innovate UK and then got the funding for this. So because we had previously done work in Ekpe area, we're able to realize that these people are actually our target audience and they require these things that we're trying to do. So the Cool Cycle project is a 12-ton cooling solar solution that is located in Ekpe area. So it helps the farmers in this area with their post-harvest losses. It also enables them have electricity because we give them energy as a service too, because this area the electricity supply in this area is not so good. So because of this solution, they have been able to even have electricity as a result of it. So in as much as we're solving post-harvest losses, we're reducing the amount of money that they have to spend on diesel generators. We're also giving them the ability to also have energy within this community. And that's what the cooling solution gives, because it's fully powered by solar energy. So everything, it's a sustainable source of energy. And then for how it impacts the community, it's three-pronged, because it's environmental, it's social, and it's also economic. Environmental in the sense that the project was based on a circularity challenge from the funders, and they wanted it to be quite innovative. And how we did this was to ensure that we used end-of-life diesel generator casings. So if you look at our project, you'll see that many of the parts we use to case or to frame the solution is based off on the casings from end-of-life diesel generators, which was quite innovative, because you realize that after the life cycle of a diesel generator, it gets thrown out and there is no follow-up from there. So it was a sort of recycling initiative for us, where we used parts of the casing of the diesel generator to form part of what we used for it. And also because it was entirely based on solar energy, we reduced the carbon dioxide emissions by a large chunk, because we're going to be using diesel generator to power refrigerators or their cooling solution to store these fresh vegetables. But because we had implemented the cool cycle rather, they were able to then reduce that expenditure, that recurrent expenditure, which was also the economic impact, because the money that they would have spent had now gone into other profitable uses. And I'm sure that Dennis also testifies to this in his own locality with what he's doing. So we are able to then see that, impact in environmental and in terms of social. We also tried to increase the standard of living for these people, because initially they were just doing it on when they had lights, they would store their vegetables, and as a result, post-harvest losses happened, and they were not able to export their vegetables. But because we had brought about the solution, the pre-cooling requirement for exportation, or whether to export their produce, was met, and they were able to then export it, and therefore giving them more income, because these people, every dollar or every naira counts for these people. Because post-harvest losses, when we interviewed them, we realized that many of them lost about 700,000 to 1.4 million per month. And that's a substantial sum for many of them if they are losing this amount of money every single month that they use. So it was really good, because standard of living for them was quite large. And then we also tried to have more female farmers in our stakeholder engagement, which we realized that many of them, the number of female farmers were not as many as we would have liked. So during our engagement, we tried to ensure that female farmers were also part of the engagement. So through this means, we have the Cool Cycle has revolutionized the farming sector in the Ekpe area. And that's how we have been able to transform it in this 3 buckets of impact on how they have seen the solution within the community. And I believe you asked another question.
Yes, no, thank you. I feel like I just learned so much from you about the area of work that you are dedicated to. But yeah, I mean, I think maybe 2 questions, one that we have prepared and one that just came in for you from the chat. But for the one that we had prepared, you've sort of taken the journey to become a young entrepreneur, to build out this business. And I think one of the questions that many people who might be considering this are facing is, how do I even go about accessing finance for this? You mentioned that we're able to access this Innovate UK funding, but yeah, how can people, or how can young people in particular, better access finance, find business development support, and again, that mentorship piece to be able to help them launch solutions that they might be excited about building for themselves and their communities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I believe Dwayne mentioned about finance, and the other panelists also mentioned about finance. It's an important aspect in any conversation we're having, and it's also good to have like youth be specifically involved in this sector. So accessing finance is, I think every organization battles with accessing finance, no matter how big or small you are. So it's a very big chunk of the work we do. But as a youth entrepreneur, what I would say is one of the ways is partnership and collaboration. I don't think one of the SDGs talks about partnership for the goals. So we can't understate it or overstate it on how important partnership and collaboration is. And I think that's also a soft skill that Dwayne, subtly mentioned about it. It's a skill that any youth going into business has to be able to possess, because even while we were doing the Cool Cycle project, we had to partner with a technical hand, Camim Technologies, that was the person that sourced the materials, because we were more of monitoring, evaluation, research development, community engagement. So partnership it's something that will get you far, just like what we're doing on this webinar with Shortlist Futures and SEforALL. They're partnering to bring this webinar to life. So getting resources, getting business development skills has a lot to do with networking and partnership. So you network, when you talk about networking, you talk about it on a horizontal level and also a vertical level. People that you aspire to be, you can say, oh, I want to network with them vertically, but like your subordinates, your colleagues, you also network with them horizontally. And networking is not just a one-off situation. You build relationships through networking. Take, for example, I had a boss that I met like 5 years ago. We met on an entirely different situation, and we just kept the relationship going. But I didn't start working with him until 2 years prior. So if I hadn't like taken the initiative to build the relationship over time, then that opportunity may not have happened for me. So networking, relationship building, even as youth, yes, we are youth, may not want to entangle ourselves with people that are in the industry, or we don't want to be seen as sycophants. But I think there is a big role that networking, partnership, collaboration plays, especially in this industry. So if you can find the right people to network with and build a sustainable relationship over time, even if it takes 10 years for the relationship to yield, you have gotten the benefit from that person. And I think one thing that some people also overlook is, for example, corporate registration. So yes, I do know that there are some funders that say you do not have to be registered for you to get this grant or for you to get this fund, but many of the times you realize that that might also be a requirement for you to, or rather for you to get to a threshold. So as you are starting out a business, you would have to say, oh, I want to put my books in order. I want to ensure that I have a corporate legal entity, because it gives you a sort of credibility. If a funder is asking you for your account number to sponsor you, if you give them your personal account information, it doesn't sit well with any funder. So you would have to take the initiative, no matter how expensive it might be, to ensure that you are credible. Because, and after you even get your registration, you have to ensure that your books are in order. Because one of the issues you realize that funders have with people is that, oh, we might not sure if we can trust them. Because I do a little bit of investment, and one of the things we look at before we do investment in people is, can we trust the people that we're giving our money to? So that's like a big part of the conversation when you are seeking investment or you're talking to a possible partner, is trust. And trust is built over time. And one of the ways you can get people to trust you, aside from relationship building, is through ensuring that your books are in order. If they ask you for your financial statement, do you do an internal audit within your firm? So it might seem very minute, but little things actually do matter in the long scheme of things. And if you are a business looking at existing for a long period of time, from day one, you should ensure that your books are in order. So I think that's one of the ways in which you can ensure that. And in terms of flipping the coin to the other side, for initiatives such as Mission 300, governmental initiatives that are pushing things out, then there should be like an earmark fund specifically driven for youth initiatives. So that way it even enforces and says that, yes, we are specific, or we're really looking at ensuring that youth are coming into the sector. So it incentivizes the process for them. So I think through these ways, you can network, you can partner, but essentially you are building things for yourself to get the funds, to get the mentorship you require. Because when you interact with these people, you get to know them, go for the conferences, go for this session, you get to realize people that are in the business or in the sector, and you get to network with them and form connections over time. And that can even unlock funding for you at the crucial point in time.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing up Mission 300. That actually brings me to my last question. I'm going to circle back to where we started with Elizabeth. And then again, I see that there's now 4 questions in the chat. So we'll get to those after Elizabeth answers this last question. But you know, we started big, we got deeper on a few topics, and maybe to pull up again, I would love to just hear, you know, given the growth projections, the challenges that we might be seeing across Africa's energy sector, you know, where is it that you see the most promising opportunities? We've talked about efficiency, cooling, renewables, and how can initiatives like Mission 300 help unlock these pathways? It also might be good, I'm not sure if everyone on the webinar knows what Mission 300 is, if maybe you can just speak a few words about what this new initiative is. Oh, I think you're muted, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely more than happy to talk about Mission 300, very similar to and pulling off that conversation on collaboration. For us to see differences, we're only 4 years away from 2030, and we still talk about global warming. And I like that this conversation has the cold chain conversation right at the center of it and food security at the center of it. So the cold chain and the value chain opportunity around Mission 300, which is a very ambitious initiative to really bring collaborators together. It's led by the World Bank Group and the Africa Development Bank. It was launched in 2024. And we are right in the center of it, but it's to bring 300 million people electricity. And we know what we can do with electricity. For a region where we've been living with, energy poverty, electricity poverty, yet on the other side, we're wasting. Our energy intensity is very high in Africa. It's actually one of the highest consistently globally. But we have the greatest opportunity because this is when we're building our cities. When we talk about the cold chain for agriculture, we haven't built them out to 100%. So with the youth and the opportunities around it, and I wanted to also add, is also being relevant. And this also helps to have the opportunity to the jobs because it's relevant towards the common goals. And a lot of the countries in sub-Sahara, in Africa as well, have their net zero goals. They have their long-term strategies. For example, Kenya has a national cooling action plan. It's a document that's available, downloadable. And youth can actually look at that and look at entrepreneurial opportunities that actually link to where the country is going. Because if we use these plans and strategies set up by government or with Mission 300, getting access to electricity, not wasting that resource, then it's much easier for a huddle collaborative community to support that. And one of the communities we have and we work with closely, and there's more coming, is the marketplace. It's an energy efficient and cooling investment marketplace. Because one of the stories we hear a lot is, especially with the youth, they have projects or programs, but they can't access the finance. So we bring this together. We are the bridge in between to bring the youth and the financiers and really tackle on why aren't a lot of projects being delivered, and also provide technical assistance in between. So with this and the opportunity for access of 300 million people towards electricity, it's also what is the use for the electricity. It's not just for the sake of maybe charging a mobile phone or just having lighting and to say, yes, we have electricity. Those productive uses of renewable energy, as they're currently being referred to, is exactly what we're talking about. We need food security, so we need the agricultural cold chain. SEforALL has spoken to a lot of that. And also the opportunity for the service in between. I like that we've talked about being dynamic. If we don't stop learning, even the ones who are beyond youth, we don't stop learning and we don't stop innovating. And I can't leave out the conversation around artificial intelligence or technology. There's a lot of opportunities now that weren't there before for us to advance. There might be traditional roles in the financial sector that a youth can actually come on board and help to advance and accelerate in achievement of a lot of these goals because we're not on track. One of them, which is quite interesting, is if we're going for finance, there are de-riskers. There's the insurance sector. And I've really noted that the insurance sector is missing out on some of these conversations because we might just go for the nice, shiny technological conversations. But we need a whole radical inclusion and intention in having youth as part of energy efficiency and the cold chain solutions we're talking about.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for helping us wrap up this panel. I know there were a lot of rich insights here. And maybe just to say, to really bring this home, I don't know if, I think some on this panel might be familiar with this chart, but there are no rich countries in the world that are energy poor. And so I think this opportunity we have to really catalyze and move towards a more sustainable future where energy access is provided to all, where people are able to use it productively, can really truly be a way to empower individuals, communities, and whole countries. And so I think we're all really excited about how we can play a role in seeing that sort of dream and ambition realized. But to turn to the Q&A, I'm going to start with the first question we have here. So just reading it out loud, panelists, feel free to come off mic or raise your hands if you might want to take it. But the first question is, how can individuals in research fields explore and secure roles within the carbon markets, climate finance sector, and cold chain solutions? Anybody want to take this question to start? Elizabeth, yeah, please.
I'll start on this and then panelists can add to it. So Sustainable Energy for All itself is a data-oriented organization. So we use data, we do research. We need a lot of research for us to get to those goals that are set out. We've just talked about 300 million people, needing an electricity access in sub-Saharan Africa. So the opportunity there, and using a lot of the technology AI we've talked about, is also do local research, because some of the times we have to rely on research that's done elsewhere, away from where we want to put the funding in. But researchers are definitely needed in the space to look at local research. For example, last example I'm giving is on cooling. When we talk about thermal comfort, a lot of the data we use is not from the region that the cooling will be most needed. But because we don't have that research, we have to go for the next best. So I'd like to ask them to look at, one of our research papers, chilling prospects on cooling, and see how we have approached research with a new problem, so to speak, and solutions that we have derived by working with the local people.
Great. No, I think the call for locally led research and inclusion is so important to ensure that we're actually delivering fit for purpose solutions. But Dwayne, sorry, it looked like you were coming off microphone.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. It's something Elizabeth touched on earlier. Some of the skills that are coming up, there is a huge gap for people who have them. So I believe it is important to build sector-specific knowledge or credentials. Courses on cold chain logistics. I know logistics as something related to just putting stuff, getting them together, getting them to another place. But specifically cold chain logistics, I wouldn't have an idea where to start with that. And as this industry grows, I think we need experts on that. Climate financing, there is definitely a gap there. And carbon accounting. We have seen as recruiters roles in carbon accounting. There's not many people who are good at that. So I think if you really want to stand out, if you really want to, grow in this sector, you need to go to the places that have this kind of information, this kind of courses, and take them on. And this would definitely give you an advantage, whether you're in research or not. I think it's key to build sector-specific knowledge.
Great, thank you. Maybe to jump to, oh, sorry, Rosemary, please, I just saw your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to add, but I also suggest exploring opportunities to take up internships and traineeships where possible, because nothing sometimes beats the ability to learn on the job, and some of these skills are very niche, and you'll have to spend time researching and maybe cyber stalking some companies online to see when they have openings or setting up alerts, but try to find opportunities for internships, especially for the very, very niche roles.
No, thanks for that. And I meant to say this earlier and I forgot, but now you've reminded me. I think Dura was saying this earlier, right? Like networking is both horizontal and vertical. And I think often people focus more on the vertical side because they see, I want to find someone who's senior, who's already been here. But I think there's so much value in connecting to someone who's at your peer level. They're going to have more recently been through the journey you're going through might be able to give you more sort of relevant support and insights on what's worked for them more recently. And so when it comes, I think, to networking and to internships as well, you know, even for myself, early in my career, I actually got internships not because they were posted at companies, but because I had, you know, done my cyber stalking, as Rosemary said, identified someone who I thought I might connect with and saw and just asked, you know, might you have an opportunity for me to come and learn alongside you? So I wouldn't discredit sort of taking the initiative in that way as well. But maybe to go to our second question. So this one's a little long, so bear with me as I read it. The attendee asks, in many development and energy sector spaces, young women, even those with strong technical expertise, are often assigned symbolic or ceremonial roles such as flower girls or event hosts instead of being recognized for their capabilities as engineers, analysts, or technical leads. They ask, how can organizations and leaders move beyond performative inclusion to ensure young women are genuinely empowered and given meaningful technical responsibilities? Who would like to start with this? Dennis, I see you're off mic.
Yes, no, yeah, well, it's quite a mouthful question, but I think the first thing is what kind of companies and organizations are we building? Because I think anyone who's building a company with the mindset that you want to build something that is scalable and that will last for a long time, you want to hire and equip the teams, not just for the show, but actually that's the real intention. So I think the important thing here is companies and also organizations working in this space to have very solid learning and development plans that are shared with the team, and then also really make room to be able to address some of the unique challenges that might be there. For example, when you have potential candidates who are female and are looking to work in your organization. So how do you make the workplace a conducive place so that you are also able to really empower everyone and not leave any of the gender behind?
Great. Thank you for that. Dwayne, not to put you on the spot, but I know we've at Shortlist done a lot of work around women's inclusion in the workforce and getting them not just into the role, but advanced in the role and retained within roles. Maybe, do you want to add some color here?
Yeah, but just wanted to say first, you know, a great CEO when they speak like when they people like Dennis touch on recruitment, you know, that's a great company to work for. I think just to add to what Dennis has said, just to go back a bit, we need to be very intentional with how we're recruiting, but also why we're recruiting. Are you just trying to fill a gap because you want a female engineer for a photo opportunity, or do you just want the best talent out there, but giving space to female engineers? And so I think for me, it starts with recruitment. I think we need to have diverse recruitment teams or hiring teams within those organizations. I think the panel needs to be as diverse as possible. You need to have women in leadership so that they can speak for other women, as well as addressing, you know, workplace culture. Assumptions that women are not able to take on certain roles because of family commitments, which is a tag only ever addressed to women, is not fair. Women can, you know, roles that, things that we say like women cannot take travel, roles that require travel. Why is that? We need to change those policies that make it safe for women to travel or flexible for women to travel. I think, yeah, the policies start in-house. For companies that do not have these policies, there's a lot of opportunity for them to build in this, you know, these policies. I'd like to say we do that a lot with the data that we capture. We tend to advise companies on where the gaps are. Starting from the recruitment process, if we're seeing less women applying, we address that directly. At Shortlist, we go and find them, but we also ask in this conversation, we have some tough conversations where we're like, you know, this group of people was capable. Why are they not in, you know, the interview panel? And so, yeah, I guess to wrap it up, we need to be more intentional about how we hire, how we retain women, and what we, how we position women as well in these organizations.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe Rosemary, do you want to add on to that?
Yes, thanks. And I think Dwayne touched on some of the key points as well as Dennis. But I think in addition to the points they've raised, I think in terms of workplace culture, I think it's more there has to be intentional effort for that behavioral shift within organizations and places, because it's beyond just being intentional. Training people, helping them understand why it's important to ensure that the workplace is also conducive, because even if sometimes if you have some policies, but if they're not, even the people implementing them or rather are not on board or don't really understand why this is important, sometimes things fall through the cracks and the workplace becomes not conducive for people and people leave. I mean, sometimes I've heard some data like, oh yeah, there are more women being enrolled in, let's say, technical roles and technical jobs, but then after some time you find them just dropping off. And this is that underlying issue where there isn't a deeply embedded culture that understands why it's important to have a diverse workforce and how we are all the better for it. So I wanted to add that. Maybe the word I don't really like to use is mainstreaming, but yeah, mainstreaming throughout the organization is really, really important. I wish I could find another word, but that is the only word I can use for now. But I think it's really, really important for that behavioral shift to happen. And sometimes it also lies on like management and the people at the strategic level to show that to lead by ownership and commitments to ensure these things happen.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, I saw you laugh at Rosemary's use of the word mainstreaming. Did you have something to add here?
I think probably it's the experience that with Rosemary and at Sustainable Energy for all our programs are mainstreaming women and youth. So it's not a matter of it's one, you tick the box and that's it. It's inherent in how we approach the programs or even how to write the programs. We have youth on board and youth ideas as well that come through the programs. And I think I was also smiling because it linked to the next question that I see online that you'll read through as well. Thank you.
Yeah. No, of course. There's two, so hopefully I'm picking the one you're looking at. So we have a question from Leo Blythe, and I know Elizabeth, you already helped answer it on text a little bit, but he asks, do you see the provision of national vocational training programs to be a priority for governments to scale cold chain technical skills and opportunities? Do you see gaps here? Could we say that current donors focus on projects more than the people they rely on? And I know you started to respond to that in text, but would you like to elaborate a little bit more?
Yes, I started on text and realized it's going to be a part of this conversation. And Leo, thank you for the question. There is a huge gap on vocational training. And one of the elements that Rosemary alluded to was when you see women dropping off, then they come back to work. We've seen that even as we are trying to get STEM trainees on board. And there needs to be an allowance for women to come back to the industries or even to shift between the industries. So sometimes we see there's a gap in that. And vocational training is a great way. And I saw it work in other countries as well. I'm a product of vocational training as well in some of these elements. So the gaps on the basis of curriculum, what are we teaching the youth? In 4 years' time, we're going to have new youth on board in the job market, right? What are they studying right now? Is it useful for any of the energy efficiency or cooling work we're talking about? Yet the training courses are available. They are open source on the websites I've mentioned before. But I think probably we need to ring fence around it so that the workforce we have coming out in the near future has the opportunity to go through vocational training that will be useful to the cold chain discussions we've had. Thank you.
Great. Oh, sorry, Rosemary, please.
Maybe to add to that, I agree with Elizabeth, but maybe another way to look at it is that, would I say, knowledge about what skills are required for what positions there are gaps in that. For instance, I mean, I don't believe that you have to be an electrical engineer to carry out some roles. And I think maybe culturally at some point, I can speak for maybe the Nigeria context. There's a heavier emphasis on having 3-4 degrees for certain roles. But in I think that has also made people discard the value that vocational training brings to the sector. I think there's a value for maybe governments to rethink and reinvest in this institutions so that we can build a workforce that we need, not necessarily the workforce that looks shiny out there. Because I mean that sometimes you will put out an ad for a job, you have people like 3 master's degrees. I feel like they are even overqualified for that role. And I think vocational training is also a good tool that can help, particularly people from marginalized areas and women, transition them from the informal to the formal sector. I think, I mean, if you look at solar PV installations, not everything requires an engineer to do it. You can have people train in some of these skills and it can also lift them out of poverty.
No, for sure. And I know I referenced the report that Shortlist put out last year, and what we found when looking at it from a skills perspective for those 3.3 million jobs, the minority of them actually required super specialized skills. So I think exactly what Rosemary is saying is correct. Like TVETs or just even certification, getting that training if a company is providing it directly, like the majority of jobs actually are in that category. And so you needn't necessarily go and pursue, years and years of schooling to be able to join this space. But Duro, your hand is up. Would you like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I wanted to add was to Rosemary's point about the skills. I also think on the flip side is ensuring that as recruiters, if you are a recruiter, then certain degrees, for example, you must be an electrical engineer, 5 years of experience, those things already limit people from applying, even if they have the requisite skills. So one of the ways is to also ensure that you don't have like a restriction. It's really based on skills as opposed to degrees or your educational qualifications. So that would also broaden the scope of people going to vocational training schools, or if you just have the skill, learn it online, because everything now can be learned almost online, right? So those skills are, from the recruiter perspective, it would also help people to want to learn those skills and not having to spend 5 years in school learning electrical engineer when you could have just spent 2 years being under somebody, learning the protocols and then applying for a job and then getting. I think that would help the green job market a lot more so that we don't have those barriers set up. You must have a master's degree, PhD, whatnot. The skills are just what you would end up using in the job as opposed to your educational qualifications.
Yeah, no, thank you. I couldn't agree more. The next question actually was directed to you, Femi. They ask, or Anne, sorry, Anne Omari asks, as a legal professional working in sustainable and in the sustainable energy space, could you share how you transitioned from a traditional legal career to addressing Nigeria's energy challenges through a sustainability lens? What insights can you offer young lawyers looking to make a similar impact in the energy sector?
Yeah, thank you. This is actually a very interesting question. I think sometimes I get that question a lot because what's the correlation between law and energy? It's totally different sectors. So personally, my journey was I volunteered for a lot of courses while I was an undergrad. So that helped me broaden my perspective, not just to the legal aspect of things. So on an advice basis is volunteer for courses. I think one of our panelists mentioned of just pouring yourself out there. You might not get the money, but you are getting the experience, you're getting the exposure. So that gave me like a level playing field that, okay, I knew that there was something called sustainable energy, there was something about sustainability. So I didn't stop there about volunteering, but I wanted to know more. So I then focused on, okay, so I want to know more about sustainable energy. So from my volunteering experience, I was able to have a broader perspective of things. And then I narrowed down that, okay, let me know more about this sector. And in knowing more about the sector led me to meeting new people within the sector, having partners, having networks, within the sector and doing a lot of reading my own self to know what exactly is the sector all about. So it's a lot of personal development and re-education. So if you want to transition totally away from the legal world, you have to do a lot of relearning. I think that's like a lot, that's skill acquisition. You're learning on your own self. But if at the end of the day, you want to still tie law to something in relation to energy, then you have to find the meeting point between both of them. Where does a legal professional have, or what space can a legal professional have in the energy sector area? And I think, the recruiters, they have spoken about how law intersects in terms of policy and whatnot in driving that force. So it's really left to your own inflection, that what exactly do you want out of it? Do you want to go away directly from law, or do you want to intersect law with what you are doing? I think answering those questions first will be the first thing for you, and then looking at possible courses you can volunteer for to expose you to this sector, and then doing a lot of personal development would help you go from step 1 to step 2. And as you keep going, you realize that you become the person you envisioned yourself as 10 years prior. So it's a journey, and I don't think you should be slight about it. So it's a work in progress that you achieve over time.
Great. Thank you for sharing more about sort of your experience and journey to transition into where you are today. So I think we've got 3 more questions. Maybe to take this first one, they ask, if you're a researcher working on a project that aims to create job opportunities in your own community, what are the best strategies to secure funding and connect with organizations or institutions that support community-driven development initiatives? I think this sort of touches maybe a little bit on the point you were raising, Elizabeth, earlier, as well as some of the remarks you were making as well, Duro. But yeah, would someone like to take this question? Oh, sorry. Yes.
And I think this will also link with, and I see Dennis stand up. See, this will link with one of the questions as well coming up. So instead of just working with national government and creating these policies and strategies that we talked about before, we also work with local communities, but in a structured manner. You work with the local government. For example, here in Kenya, you have counties or cities, but also those counties, cities bring in the stakeholders from the communities. And right there, you start mapping the projects that would align towards the cold chain. So, for example, you wouldn't do a cold chain for a crop that doesn't exist in a fisheries area. So it has to be community-led information. And from there, you can also do origination and collaboration of different projects. One thing we found when we do the marketplace for energy efficiency is you find one project on one side of the country and a similar project in another side of the country. It doesn't stop aggregation. So there's an opportunity there for greater collaboration at community scale, but also responding to the needs of that community and to the plans and the strategies I mentioned before. But I'll hand it back to you. Thanks.
Yeah. Dennis, was there something you wanted to add here?
Yes, so I think maybe also to add on from what has already been said, it's important before we even talk about the funding and the opportunity to finance the idea, to really think about the business model and what kind of problem is actually being solved. Because again, if most of the potential investors will have to really look at what problem is being solved. But then also, I think there is quite an opportunity, especially in rural areas, for especially those with technical skills to start looking or opening up their minds to some entrepreneurial opportunities. So most of the renewable energy infrastructure is being set up in rural areas, and that's where also some of the vocational training institutes are. And for most of the project developers, sometimes it's quite a difficult thing managing sites that are in far away areas. So there is room for like local solutions to provide like operation and maintenance support and start to prove that we can translate the technical skills into a viable service business. And from there, then I think you can then be able to either look for potential grants from either the local governments or from other institutions that can help to expand that idea. But already there is a clear product market fit, I would say, even in micro scale.
Great. And Duro, looks like you would like to add.
Yes, just to add to what has been said, I think one other way is also to be people-centric. So if you are doing a project in a rural community, you really have to connect with the people you're doing the project for. So know their needs, know exactly what they want. And if you're people-centric, then the value you subsequently create will be centered on the community as opposed to profit. And there you're then solving a need and not a want. So that's what I wanted to add to the conversation.
No, thank you. Maybe Dwayne, I might suggest that this next question is directed to you. So Mariama asks, as we scale up cold chain solutions in emerging markets, especially in rural areas with weak grid infrastructure, what strategies are being explored to ensure both energy efficiency and job creation, particularly for women and youth? I was thinking maybe you could really touch on sort of the types of jobs and roles and what we're seeing in rural versus urban areas with these types of companies.
Yeah, just to speak on the opportunities for women and youth, especially in rural areas. A lot of the organizations we're working with, including SEforALL, have one of the key recruitment requirements is that they hire from local communities, which touches on, can't remember who said this, but when you build products to connect with people, you also need to hire locally, hire the people who are in those areas to understand their needs. And so a lot more than before also, when we started this project 4 years ago, a lot of them were centered in the city. But when it comes to scaling, you need to move outside of Nairobi, and then as such, we need to hire from local communities. So the opportunities are there. Why people prefer to hire in local communities is because for a variety of reasons. They understand the community they're selling to or scaling in. They act as community leaders or community entrepreneurs, especially when people are like in doubt of a certain product. You should hire someone locally who understands the product, but also understands the people they're selling to, at least to an advantage. Also, I know these doesn't come up a lot, but also understanding of local dialects has been key. And so there are a lot of organizations hiring locally. I guess on the business sense, it's also cheaper. Like Dennis said, instead of hiring maintenance people all the way from Nairobi, you'd rather have them in the local community. And it's just the turnaround time, the cost saving becomes a key factor. For strategies, I do believe that a lot of the companies we work with do partner with, for example, community-based organizations to hire from them, to demystify again the product or the kind of work you'll be doing. And so they partner with CBOs, they partner with local universities, the TVETs, we do that too, where we reach out, give the opportunities to local people first before we look beyond that area.
Great, thank you. And for our last question, Igua asks, in many African countries, the carbon market and other nature-based economic sectors are still emerging with limited national policies, regulatory frameworks, or infrastructure to support them. How do these gaps affect individuals, organizations, and investors trying to operate effectively in these fields? How do startups and even established organizations navigate this issue? Would someone like to kind of talk about this interplay between sort of limited regulation and these emerging subsectors? Or sure, I guess Elizabeth, you're off mic, and then we can have Rosemary answer.
I think this definitely brings in the element around, today we're talking about energy efficiency and cold chains. A lot of the countries in sub-Sahara don't have effective policies. They might be there, some might be outdated. But what we do and what we've been doing on the ground is really collaborate with the national government and supporting that and really highlight what is delaying the process of the private sector if there's a policy or regulatory framework that doesn't exist. And I'm speaking on this on the basis of experience, and constantly trying to see how ambitious we can be, even with existing policies, and where they don't exist, having that collaborative framework so that private sector is part of it. From a lot of our work where we've looked at energy transition and investment plans, 70 to 80% of investment needs to come from private sector. And sometimes the policies don't exist. So that collaborative framework and intentional at it is really key. And we have case studies in Kenya where we've got policies that have been turned around in 6 months in record time, and guidance is given on the same. Thank you.
Great. And Rosemary, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so maybe on two issues, Elizabeth, you're spot on. And I think, yes, sometimes you have to take the risk. I mean, if I recall, about 5 to 6 years ago, the off-grid sector, mini-grid sector was still evolving. There were not clear policies and things like that, but people, private sector and people still took the risk working with government. And now we have, in most countries, some, at least I'll say most parts of Africa, most ministries have now developed clear policies and guidelines that have enabled the sector to continue to grow, which has created an enabling environment for more investment. So yes, collaboration is key. And on the carbon markets, again, of course, that's a very tricky one, because even though there isn't a unified framework, but we go from country to country, things are happening. And to add to that, I'll say do your research and see how you can plug in. I mean, I know that from SEforALL side, we have been pushing for a unified framework for carbon markets to enable African countries plug in and reap the benefits of the sector. And there's something called the Africa Carbon Market Initiatives, which is being done in partnership with many other organizations. So suggest you take a look at that. And I think even building on that, a couple of countries have actually developed their carbon market activation plans to create that space and environment. I also advise in terms of those sectors, I think a good starting point will be getting plugged in with the ministries of environments. Sometimes they are doing things and sometimes it's not that much out there, but those are the key people who within countries, especially in Africa, who drive action around those spaces.
Great. Well, excuse me. Thank you, Rosemary, for those sort of final thoughts, and for all the panelists for taking the time today, giving you a virtual round of applause for the insights and knowledge that you shared. To everyone who participated, I hope, and we all hope, that you found this actionable, that you hopefully learned something, some new tips and tricks to assist you as you're trying to figure out how to navigate successfully jobs and opportunities in the cooling and efficiency space. But as we wrap up, I'm going to pass the mic to Ava Strasser, the Gender and Youth Analyst at Sustainable Energy for All, to handle our closing remarks. So Ava, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sierra, and thank you to everyone who spoke on today's panel. I think, as a youth myself, the remarks were extremely insightful, and I'm sure many of the attendees felt the same. So as we close today's session, I want to extend our deepest gratitude to each of our panelists and to each of the attendees who joined our inaugural webinar in our Activating Africa's Green Economy through Youth Employment Summer Series. Your engagement today really underscores that importance of positioning youth at the forefront of Africa's energy transition. Today's insightful discussion highlighted the immense potential and the urgent need within Africa's green economy and evolving energy landscape. We explored how the continent stands at a pivotal intersection with a growing youth population, pressing climate challenges, but also, that transformative potential of a growing green energy transition. Our speakers have really shared insightful and valuable perspectives. Dwayne, Dennis, Jero, and Elizabeth, they all emphasize the critical need for financial professions within the green energy sector, and building trust with investors that hinges on that meticulous financial management piece, underscoring the importance of visuals who can really keep the books in order. Beyond technical expertise, our speakers highlighted the importance of time management, communication, and above all, being teachable, dynamic, and adaptable with a desire for continuous improvement. And in terms of where youth entrepreneurship come in, I think Dennis really spoke to it about identifying problems that you are passionate about solving, especially those that others, have not solved yet, in sectors with clear growth opportunities. And that importance of really understanding the supply chain, but also leveraging the support and perspective of others. And Duro really reinforced this when speaking to the advice to youth to develop understanding of people's needs through that stakeholder, people-centered engagement. So collectively, these contributions of our speakers, our panelists, have really illustrated opportunities within energy access, energy efficiency, and cold chain solutions, and highlighted pathways for youth to secure decent employment or launch impactful businesses. And this webinar is really just the beginning, as SEforALL and Shortlist Futures, along with our partners, have our mission to mobilize collective youth action to unlock Africa's green economy and advance achievement towards Sustainable Development Goal 7. So we encourage all of you who are here today as youth to invest in your skills, explore the growing fields of energy efficiency, energy access, cold chains, sustainable agriculture, really seek out both the technical and soft skills highlighted today. And I'll share a really great resource that SEforALL has put out, which is our career guide. And I'll drop it in the chat as well. And we encourage you to embrace entrepreneurship by really identifying those market gaps and seeking ways to be innovative, particularly in areas like cold storage solutions, energy efficient appliances, sustainable food systems. There's really that immense scope that I think we've seen today from our speakers to really build solutions that address Africa's unique challenges and also the opportunities. And build your network. So as Duro stressed, really that partnership piece, that collaboration piece, they're essential to any young entrepreneur. Networking is a vital soft skill. It will never stop being something that's important within the sector. So connect to those that you inspire to be, that you see as potential partners, and also your colleagues, and build really sustainable relationships over time. And we invite you to connect with us at Shortlist Future at SEforALL, to engage with us as sort of industry leaders or mentors, and follow us on our accounts. And those that you heard from today and beyond are here because they want to work with and empower youth to our shared goal of a sustainable energy future. So really, I would invite you, maybe on behalf of everyone, to sort of follow along and reach out. And you can also connect with Mission Efficiency, as Elizabeth mentioned a few times, to learn more about their efforts. There's some resources and training that you can access, and really find ways to contribute to global energy efficiency initiatives. And I'll drop that link in the chat as well. And for partners, colleagues, among policymakers, industry leaders, and investors who might be here today, I think that we really emphasize that call on you to support policies and standards that create an enabling environment for youth employment and entrepreneurship in the green economy. And as Elizabeth underscored, those mandatory standards are crucial for creating green jobs that we need across Africa. And this imperative really extends to women, demanding a transformative shift in behaviors in the active institutionalization of women's entrance, advancement, and leadership in the green energy workplace. We encourage you to invest in skills development and earmark funds for youth employment and initiatives, fund and scale upskilling, reskilling, and mentorship programs tailored to green jobs, including the training of energy auditors, environmental engineers, and solar technicians, which we've sort of reheard are growing and important in the sector. And really that collaboration piece is crucial, not only for youth, but also for all stakeholders, to create these pathways for youth participation and investment in the energy transition, to drive innovation in energy access, energy efficiency, and sustainable cooling. And we know, all of us here today, and I think it's only going to become more obvious that by empowering young people with the necessary skills and creating this enabling environment, that Africa really will lead the green energy transition. And so we encourage everyone to join us for our upcoming webinars. More information will be posted on SEforALL and Shortlist Futures social medias. So keep an eye out for our exciting announcements and updates. And we look forward to really working together to build the sustainable energy future for all. So thank you again for your attendance and your participation.